You probably do not think about your kidneys. Not when you pour the morning juice. Not when the third coffee comes with 2 sugars because that is just how it tastes, right? Not when the afternoon snack arrives automatically, habitually, without a single conscious decision attached to it. Your kidneys are not part of the conversation you have with your body. They're the quiet ones. The organs working in the background of every meal, every drink, every unconscious handful of something sweet, filtering approximately 200 liters of blood every single day, regulating your blood pressure, balancing your fluid levels, deciding what stays and what leaves, without ever once asking to be noticed. But right now, inside those 2 fist-sized organs sitting just below your rib cage, something is happening that the sugar in your diet is directly responsible for. And most people never understand what that something is until the damage it produces has been accumulating silently for years. This video is about what happens to those organs, specifically, not generally, when you remove added sugar for 30 days. Not your weight, not your skin. What happens to the kidneys? The organs doing the most work, carrying the most invisible cost, and responding to dietary change faster than almost anyone expects. Your kidneys contain approximately 2 million filtering units, called nephrons. Each nephron is a microscopic loop of tubing so precisely engineered that it can distinguish between what your body needs to keep and what it needs to remove, making that determination thousands of times per minute, continuously, for the duration of your life. When you consume added sugar, particularly fructose, which is 1/2 of the sucrose molecule present in virtually all sweetened foods, 4 things happen to those nephrons that the sugar conversation almost never includes. The first is hyperfiltration. When blood glucose rises after a high-sugar meal, the tiny capillary knots inside each nephron dilate and push blood through at higher pressure than normal. In the short term, the body manages this. Across years of high daily sugar consumption, the chronic pressure slowly damages the delicate walls of the glomerular capillaries. The American Journal of Physiology identifies sustained glomerular hyperfiltration as one of the earliest documented markers of kidney stress, beginning at sugar consumption levels well within the range of a normal modern diet. The second is uric acid accumulation. When fructose is metabolized in the liver, it produces uric acid as a byproduct. High fructose consumption produces uric acid faster than the kidneys can clear it. As it accumulates, it suppresses nitric oxide production inside the kidney tubules and activates an inflammatory pathway that directly damages the tubular cells. Dr. Richard Johnson at the University of Colorado found that fructose-induced uric acid elevation is not merely a marker of kidney stress. It is the mechanism by which the damage occurs. The third is blood pressure dysregulation. Your kidneys control blood pressure through a hormonal system called the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. High fructose consumption chronically activates this system, elevating blood pressure not just after meals, but as a sustained baseline between them. Research in the Journal of the American Society of Nephrology confirms that high-sugar diets produce measurably elevated RAS activity, and that reducing sugar intake drops blood pressure independent of any other dietary change. The fourth is inflammation. Fructose promotes inflammatory cytokines that accumulate in kidney tissue. This inflammation does not produce pain. It does not register on routine blood panels until it has been present for a long time. It exists quietly, reshaping the tissue environment in which your nephrons operate, creating the conditions for the structural damage that shows up much later. For mechanisms, none of them dramatic, all of them silent, all of them operating on an ordinary modern diet. Here is what needs to be said before the recovery story starts. Your kidneys can lose up to 60% of their function before standard blood tests begin showing abnormalities. This is not a reassuring fact. This is the definition of an organ that can sustain years of invisible damage while its owner feels, by most external measures, perfectly fine. The slight puffiness around the eyes in the morning that you accepted as just how mornings are. That is fluid retention, signaling that the kidney's water regulation is under strain. The blood pressure creeping upward year by year, normalized as simply getting older. Part of that is the RAS system chronically activated by fructose. The low-grade fatigue that settles in by mid-afternoon, the foggy quality to thinking, the sense that the body is running slightly below what it should be capable of. Some of that is the kidneys redirecting metabolic energy from their maintenance functions to the processing of a filtration load they were never designed to handle at this volume. These symptoms did not arrive as emergencies. They arrived slowly, integrating themselves into the texture of ordinary days until they stopped being read as symptoms at all. They became normal. And the version of yourself that had more energy, better fluid regulation, lower blood pressure, nephrons operating at sustainable baseline pressure, that version was quietly being replaced by the adaptive version. The version that coped. You did not consent to this. The food system that delivered 25 teaspoons of added sugar into an ordinary day did not disclose the renal cost on the label. The damage was quiet because it was designed to be consumed without the consumer understanding its full physiological consequence. But the kidneys were keeping count. They wanted A3. The moment added sugar is removed, blood glucose stops cycling through the repeated spikes and troughs of the high-sugar day. Glomerular hyperfiltration, which is directly correlated with glucose spikes, begins normalizing within 72 hours. The pressure on those delicate capillary walls starts to ease. You will not feel this, but inside the nephrons, the operational environment is already different from what it was. The body also begins clearing stored glycogen, which binds water molecules, producing the increased urination that many people notice in the first 3 days. This is not dehydration. This is the kidneys recalibrating their fluid regulation without the constant influence of sugar-driven water retention. Day 4 to day 14, day 15 to day 30. In the third week, the RAS system, chronically activated by fructose, begins normalizing. The kidneys stop maintaining a chronically elevated blood pressure floor and begin regulating dynamically again. The aldosterone dysregulation that was causing sodium retention and potassium depletion corrects. The electrolyte balance that was being subtly undermined begins to restore, and with it, the fatigue and cognitive fog that were partly a product of this imbalance begin to lift. By day 30, the research from Dr. Robert Lustig's group at the University of California, San Francisco, showing measurable improvement in metabolic and kidney stress markers within 9 days of reduced sugar intake, with total calories held constant, has been exceeded in duration. The inflammatory markers in kidney tissue are measurably reduced. Uric acid is at a lower baseline. RAS activity has normalized. Glomerular filtration pressure has reduced from its hyperfiltration state. The kidneys have not been healed in any dramatic sense. Existing damage does not dissolve in 30 days, but the ongoing generation of new damage has been interrupted. The trajectory has changed, and the reserve capacity that was being quietly consumed by chronic sugar strain has been partially returned to the system. You did not start watching this thinking about your kidneys, but now you understand something the label on the morning juice never told you. That the ordinary level of added sugar in an ordinary modern day, 22 to 30 teaspoons, 4 to 5 times the WHO's recommended maximum, places 2 of your most essential organs under chronic, measurable, silent strain that accumulates across years before it becomes visible on any test. And you understand something else, that those organs do not wait for perfection before they begin responding to change. They do not require a complete and permanent elimination of sugar from a life built around its presence. They require only that the load begins to reduce, and they start responding to that reduction within 72 hours. The morning puffiness that was normal, that was the kidneys recalibrating. The blood pressure number accepted as aging, that was the RAS system being given permission to stop overworking. The afternoon fog, That was partly the energy cost of a filtration system handling 4 times its intended load, being returned to the body it was borrowed from. Your kidneys have been working for you since before you were old enough to make a single dietary choice. They have been absorbing the cost of a food environment that never disclosed what it was asking of them. 30 days is not a cure, but 30 days is long enough for the biology to demonstrate that a different trajectory is available. Long enough for the research to show measurable change. Long enough for the 2 quietest organs in your body to begin doing something they have not been able to do in years. Work a little less hard.